Captain Dan Miller stood in the control room of Earth's Space Defense Station, looking at the big screen that showed strange alien ships floating near Mars. The ships had been there for 3 days now. The aliens called themselves the Galactic Empire, and they wanted to talk to Earth's leaders. Dan did not like what they had to say. "Captain Miller, the aliens are calling us again," said Sarah Brooks, the young woman who worked the radio. "Put them on the screen, Sarah." The screen changed, and Dan saw the face of an alien. The creature had blue skin like a lizard and cold, yellow eyes. His name was Admiral Korthdal, and he spoke for the Galactic Empire. "Captain Miller," the alien said through a machine that changed his words to English, "your leaders have had enough time to think about our offer. The Galactic Empire wants 40% of everything your planet makes each year. We also want your young men and women to join our army. If you agree, we will protect your world." Dan looked at his friend Colonel Lisa Park, who stood next to him. She was angry, and Dan could see it in her face. They both knew what protection meant. They had talked to people from other worlds who had escaped from the Empire. Protection meant slavery. "Admiral Korthdal," Dan said in a calm voice, "I cannot make this choice. You need to talk to our world government." The alien's face showed he was getting upset. "Yes, your simple voting system. We have already sent our demands to your Earth Council. They have 24 hours to say yes." The screen went black and the control room became very quiet. "Sir," said Lieutenant Bob Chen from his workstation, "our sensors show more Empire ships coming into our solar system. It looks like they want to surround us." Dan was not surprised. The Empire did the same thing to every world they wanted to control. They came with lots of ships, made their demands, and destroyed anyone who said no. But the Empire did not know that Earth had been getting ready for this day for a very long time. Dan had read the secret files. 30 years ago, when the Empire first visited Earth, they thought humans were weak and stupid. They left some of their technology behind by accident. Earth's best scientists had been studying that technology ever since. "Sarah, call Director Helen Walsh at the Earth Council," Dan ordered. In a few minutes, the face of Earth's top defense leader appeared on another screen. Helen Walsh was a tough woman who had been waiting for this call. "Captain Miller, I guess our space visitors are getting pushy?" "Yes, ma'am. They want an answer in 24 hours. Then we better get moving. Operation Hidden Shield starts now. Begin the first phase right away." Dan felt excited and scared at the same time. Operation Hidden Shield was Earth's secret plan. For 30 years, while the Empire ignored Earth, humans had been building weapons and defenses all over the solar system. The aliens thought Earth was just one weak planet. They were very wrong. "You heard the director," Dan told his team. "Start Phase 1, and somebody get General Mike Torres at Moonbase. It's time to show these Empire bullies what happens when they mess with Earth." Red warning lights began flashing all over the station. Dan watched his people work at their computers, sending secret messages to hidden bases all over the solar system. Moonbase was getting ready. The secret weapons on Mars were powering up. The space stations that looked like research labs were opening their hidden gun ports. For 30 years, Earth had been pretending to be weak while getting stronger. The Empire was about to learn a very hard lesson. Dan thought about his daughter, back on Earth. She was only 10 years old and she deserved to grow up free. The Empire wanted to take that freedom away, to make Earth just another slave world in their collection. "Not going to happen," Dan said quietly to himself. The Galactic Empire controlled 10,000 worlds. Their ships could destroy entire planets. For 1,000 years, no one had ever been strong enough to fight them. But they had never fought humans before. Dan looked at the screen showing the Empire ships near Mars. Soon, those ships would attack. The Empire expected Earth to surrender, quickly, like every other world had done. Instead, they were going to get the fight of their lives. "Sarah," Dan called out, "send a message to all our hidden bases. Tell them to get ready. In 24 hours, we're going to show the galaxy what Earth is really made of." The young woman smiled as she sent the message. All over the solar system, secret weapons were getting ready to fire. Hidden bases were preparing for battle. Soldiers who had trained their whole lives for this moment were taking their positions. The Empire thought they were coming to collect another weak world. Instead, they were flying into a trap that had been 30 years in the making. Dan Miller looked at his team working around him. These were good people, brave people, who would not bow down to bullies from space. They were ready to fight for their freedom and their families. "Let them come," Dan said, watching the Empire ships on the screen. "Let's see how tough they really are when someone fights back." The countdown to Earth's greatest battle had begun. In 24 hours, the galaxy would learn that humans don't give up without a fight. And the Galactic Empire was about to discover why that was a very big mistake. The big meeting room of the Earth Council had never been so full. Leaders from every country, space colony, and moon base came together for what many people thought would be Earth's surrender to the aliens. But they were wrong. They were about to see something that had never happened before in the galaxy. President Mary Stone stood at the front of the room. Her face was calm and strong, not scared like the Empire aliens expected. Behind her, flags from every nation on Earth hung next to the blue and white flag of the United Earth Council. "Friends and leaders," she began, speaking clearly so everyone could hear. "We have all read what the Empire wants from us. They want 40% of everything we make each year. They want our young people to fight in their army. They want us to obey them completely. But before we answer, I want you to remember what the Centauri people told us last year." The room became very quiet. The Centauri were aliens who had escaped from the Empire and come to Earth for help. Their stories about slavery, destroyed cities, and dead cultures had shocked everyone. "The Empire says they will protect us and make us rich," President Stone continued. "But we know what their protection really means. They take everything from planets, they make people into slaves. They destroy entire civilizations and pretend they never existed." She looked around the room at all the human leaders. "So, after talking to everyone, the United Earth Council has chosen our answer to give to the Galactic Empire." The big doors opened, and Admiral Korthdal walked in with his alien helpers. He looked confident, expecting humans to give up without a fight. But when he saw the determined faces in the room, he started to look worried. "Admiral Korthdal," President Stone said, her voice becoming hard as steel. "You asked for our answer to your demands. Here it is. No." The word hung in the air like thunder. The alien's translation machine made strange noises, as if it could not understand such a simple word. "I am sorry," the alien admiral said, sounding confused. "But I think your machine is broken. Did you say no?" "Yes, I did, and there is more. By the power given to me by the United Earth Council and all the governments of humanity, I declare that the Galactic Empire is not welcome in our solar system. You have 24 hours to take all your ships and leave our space." The silence that followed was complete. Admiral Korthdal stared at the human leader like she had just said she could fly to the stars with her bare hands. You cannot simply refuse the Empire," he said, his voice shaking. No world has ever been Earth," said General Tony Garcia, standing up from his seat with the military leaders. "You want to know why we are different, Admiral? It is because we have been getting ready for this talk for 30 years. Getting ready?" The alien's blue skin changed color, showing he was confused and scared. "You are just one simple world. We control 10,000 star systems. You cannot possibly..." "Cannot what?" President Stone smiled, but it was not a nice smile. "Let me tell you something about humans, Admiral. We are very good at solving problems. When we see danger coming, we prepare for it. When we see an enemy, we study them. When we see a bully, we figure out how to knock them down." She pressed a button, and a big hologram appeared in the air, showing the solar system. Red dots showed where the Empire ships were floating. Blue dots showed where Earth's forces were hidden. 30 years ago, when your people first came to Earth, you made a big mistake. You saw one world with simple technology and thought we would be easy to conquer. What you did not see was that we had already started getting ready for your return. The hologram moved closer to Mars, showing huge underground bases that had been hidden under the planet's surface. "The Mars Defense System," President Stone said. 17 secret bases underground, each one able to shoot nuclear missiles at 95% of light speed. Every single one of those missiles is pointed at your ships right now. Admiral Korthdal's skin turned a sick green color. You would not dare use nuclear weapons. The radiation would what? Hurt us? Admiral, we have been living with nuclear weapons for more than 100 years. We know exactly what they can do, and we are not afraid to use them. The hologram changed to show moon bases, asteroid mining stations that were really weapon platforms, and space stations that looked like research labs but were actually forts. The Moon Defense Network, she continued. The asteroid belt weapons, the orbital guard system, all of it has been built, tested, and aimed at targets while your empire thought we were helpless primitives. Senator Rick Johnson from America stood up. Admiral, let me make this very simple for you. We have read your history books. We know how you work. You show up, make demands, and expect everyone to obey. Well, congratulations. You have just met the first species in your empire's history that is telling you to go to hell. The room exploded with clapping and cheering, and Admiral Korthdal seemed to shrink back from the sound. This is impossible, he said, his voice barely heard over the noise. No single world has ever fought the Empire. You will be destroyed. Maybe, President Stone said calmly, but we will take a lot of your ships with us when we die. The question is, Admiral, how many of your ships are you willing to lose just to force one world to surrender? The alien looked around the room, seeing nothing but angry, determined faces. This was not supposed to happen. Primitive worlds were supposed to be happy that the Empire noticed them, eager to trade their freedom for fake protection. You have 24 hours, President Stone said again. After that, any Empire ship still in our solar system will be an act of war, and we will fight back. As the alien group walked out of the room in shocked silence, Senator Lisa Wong from the Pacific region leaned over to her friend. Do you think they will actually leave? Not a chance, he replied. But that is okay. We have been waiting for this fight for 30 years. Outside the building, Admiral Korthdal walked quickly to his shuttle, his mind racing. In 1,000 years of Empire expansion, no world had ever said no. Not one. Planets begged to join the Empire. They fought each other for the chance to serve. But these humans were different. As his shuttle lifted off toward his ship, Admiral Korthdal realized that the galaxy was about to change forever, and the Galactic Empire might not survive what was coming. The Empire's answer came exactly 24 hours later. Huge alien ships appeared at the edge of the solar system like angry metal monsters. Captain Dan Miller watched from Earth's Space Defense Station as his computers counted over 300 ships, from massive warships to fast attack fighters. Well, said Colonel Lisa Park, standing next to him, they sure brought a lot of friends. Count them again, Lisa, Dan ordered. I want to know exactly how many we are fighting. 321 ships, Captain. Looks like they brought everything they had in this part of the galaxy. Dan nodded. Earth spies had told them the Empire would bring overwhelming force to their first real challenge in hundreds of years. They could not afford to look weak in front of the other worlds they controlled. Sir, the Empire fleet is calling us, said Sarah Brooks from her radio station. Put them on the screen. The face that appeared was not Admiral Korthdal, but a bigger, scarier alien with darker blue skin and the special marks that showed he was very important in the Empire. I am Admiral Vexthor, Supreme Commander of the Galactic Empire's 3rd Attack Fleet, the alien announced. You will surrender right now, or we will turn your world into burning ash. Dan smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. Admiral Vexthor, this is Captain Dan Miller of the Earth Defense Forces. You are not allowed in our solar system. You have 10 minutes to start leaving, or we will consider your presence an act of war. The alien's face showed what might have been amusement. Captain Miller, you are talking to the combined might of the Galactic Empire. We have conquered 10,000 worlds. What makes you think your single planet can stand against us? Because, Dan replied calmly, we are not just one planet anymore. He pressed a button that connected him to every human base in the solar system, and suddenly the screen split to show dozens of faces. Commanders of moon bases, asteroid mining, stations, Mars colonies, and space platforms throughout the solar system. Admiral Vexthor, meet the Sol Defense Network. General Tony Garcia, Moonbase. Colonel Jim Brown, Mars Central Command. Captain Nancy Wells, Asteroid Belt Defense Grid, Commander Doug Evans, Jupiter Station, and about 60 more bases that your scouts somehow missed. Each commander nodded as Dan introduced them, their faces showing the same angry determination that had become humanity's trademark. Every human base in this system is armed and ready, Dan continued. Every asteroid miner has been turned into a weapons platform. Every research station has been equipped with defense systems. Every transport ship has been fitted with missiles. Admiral, you are not facing one world. You are facing an entire star system that has spent 30 years preparing to kill you. Admiral Vexthor's skin had changed to a sickly yellow color. You are lying. No single species could what? Organize, plan, work together? Admiral, you have been dealing with species that spent hundreds of years under your boot. We have been free for our entire existence, and we plan to stay that way. The alien commander seemed to get some of his confidence back. Even if what you say is true, you cannot possibly have the firepower to challenge an Empire fleet of this size. Maybe not, Dan admitted. But let us find out. All stations, this is Captain Miller. Execute Operation Hidden Shield, Phase 2. All over the solar system, bases that had been disguised as civilian buildings suddenly showed their true nature. Asteroid mining stations deployed massive railguns. Moon bases opened hidden missile silos. Space platforms extended weapon arrays that had been hidden inside their structures. Holy cow, whispered Lieutenant Bob Chen from his workstation. I knew we had been building defenses, but this is incredible. On the screen, Admiral Vexthor was getting reports from his own sensors, and his face was becoming more and more alarmed. Impossible, he muttered. The power readings. How did you hide this from our scouts? Easily, Dan replied. We have had 30 years to study your technology, Admiral. We know exactly what your sensors can and cannot detect. While you were thinking we were primitives, we were learning how to become invisible to your instruments. The Empire Admiral was clearly having trouble understanding what he was seeing. Even so, you cannot hope to defeat the combined might of the Empire. This fleet represents only a small part of our forces. You are right, Dan agreed. But here is the thing about humans, Admiral. We do not have to defeat your entire empire. We just have to make conquering us cost more than you are willing to pay. He activated another display, showing the battle situation throughout the system. Every single one of your ships is currently targeted by at least 3 of our installations. Your big warships are being tracked by our Mars defense grid. Your cruisers are in the crosshairs of our asteroid belt artillery. Your fighters are being painted by our moon defense network. Dan's voice became hard and angry. You want to know what makes humans different from every other species you have conquered? We do not surrender. We do not give up. We do not kneel down. And we sure as hell do not roll over and die quietly. The transmission from Admiral Vexthor cut off suddenly, and Dan turned to his team. All right, people, this is it. They are going to try to break our will with a show of force. Colonel Park, deploy the outer defense line. Lieutenant Chen, bring all weapon systems online. Sarah, patch me through to every installation in the system. As the orders were carried out, Dan watched the Empire fleet begin to move into attack formation. 300 ships against the scattered defenses of a single star system. On paper, it should have been a massacre. But Dan Miller was about to show them that humans had never been very good at doing what other people expected. All stations, this is Captain Miller, he announced over the system-wide radio. 30 years ago, we looked up at the stars and saw an empire that thought it could own us. Today we show them why Earth bows to no one. All units, weapons free. Let us send these bullies home. The first shots of the Sol Defense War lit up the darkness of space like fireworks. Missiles streaked from hidden moon bases toward Empire ships. Railgun slugs fired from asteroid platforms at incredible speeds. Energy beams lanced out from Mars defense stations. The Empire had expected an easy victory over a primitive world. Instead, they found themselves fighting for their lives against an enemy that had spent 3 decades preparing for this exact moment. As explosions bloomed across space and the first Empire ships began to die, Dan Miller smiled grimly. The galaxy was about to learn that humans do not go down without a fight. and the Galactic Empire was about to discover why that was a very, very big mistake. 6 months after the first shots were fired, Captain Dan Miller stood inside what used to be the Empire's biggest warship. The massive alien vessel floated dead in space, its hull broken in dozens of places, its crew long gone to the few Empire ships that had survived the battle. "Final report, Sarah," he said to his communications officer, who was watching the big tactical display that showed the entire solar system. "All Empire forces have left our space, Captain. The solar system is completely clear." Dan nodded, but he did not feel happy about winning. The cost had been terrible. 3 Earth space stations were destroyed. Moonbase had taken heavy damage. Mars Central Command had lost over 1,000 good people. The asteroid mining platforms had lost 40% of their workers. But they had won. "Sir," said Colonel Lisa Park, walking up with a computer tablet, "we are getting messages from all over the galaxy. It seems word of our victory has spread everywhere." Dan took the tablet and read through the messages. They were coming from dozens of worlds, all asking the same question. How did Earth beat the Empire? "Captain," said Lieutenant Bob Chen from his workstation, "long-range sensors are picking up something interesting. Multiple fleets are moving throughout Empire space, but they are not coming toward us." "Where are they going?" "Everywhere, sir. It looks like rebellions are starting all over the Empire. The slave worlds are following our example." Dan smiled for the first time in months. This was what they had hoped for, what they had given so much to achieve. Not just Earth's freedom, but the freedom of every world that had been crushed under the Empire's boot. "Captain Miller," came a voice from the communication system. It was President Mary Stone, calling from Earth. "We just got a formal message from the Galactic Empire. They want to stop fighting and talk about peace." "Tell them we will talk," Dan replied, "but only if we are in charge. They want to negotiate, they can come to Earth. On our terms." 3 weeks later, the peace talks happened in the same Earth Council room where humanity had first said no to the Empire. But this time, everything was different. Admiral Korthdal sat across from President Stone, no longer the confident representative of an unstoppable force, but a desperate diplomat trying to save what was left of a falling empire. "The Empire is prepared to offer big compromises, Admiral," Korthdal said, his voice lacking its former arrogance. "Lower tribute rates, limited military draft, greater freedom for member worlds." President Stone leaned back in her chair. "Admiral, I do not think you understand what is happening. We are not asking for better terms of surrender. We are telling you the terms of your withdrawal from human space. You cannot possibly expect us to abandon our territorial claims in this entire sector. Cannot we?" Stone smiled. "Admiral, let me explain something to you. 6 months ago, you controlled 10,000 worlds. How many do you control now?" Admiral Korthdal's skin turned pale green. "The current situation is temporary. Once we restore order—" "You mean once you reconquer the worlds that have declared their independence? The worlds that are now using weapons and tactics learned from studying our victory? The worlds that no longer fear your ships because they have seen them burn?" Around the room, humanity's representatives watched as the alien diplomat struggled with the reality of the Empire's collapse. "The Centauri Republic has declared its independence," said Senator Rick Johnson, reading from a data tablet. "The Kepler Confederation has thrown all Empire forces out of their territory. The Outer Rim Alliance has been formed by 17 former Empire worlds, and that is just in the last week. Furthermore," added Senator Lisa Wong, "our intelligence shows that core Empire worlds are beginning to question the central authority. Apparently, the myth of imperial invincibility was more important to your control than you realized." "Admiral," Korthdal looked around the room desperately. "What do you want?" "It is simple," President Stone replied. "Complete withdrawal of all Empire forces from our solar system and the surrounding sectors. Recognition of Earth's sovereignty and the sovereignty of all worlds that have declared their independence. Payment for the damage caused by your attack. And most importantly, a promise that the Empire will never again try to conquer or enslave any world that chooses to remain free. Impossible. The Empire cannot simply abandon its territorial claims. Then the Empire will continue to fall apart, Stone said calmly. Every day you delay, more worlds rebel. Every week you refuse to negotiate. More of your fleets are destroyed by forces using our tactics. Every month you cling to your old ways of thinking. More of your subject species remember what freedom feels like. She stood up, and the rest of humanity's representatives followed. You have a choice, Admiral. You can accept our terms and save what remains of your empire, or you can continue fighting and watch it crumble completely. But understand this. The age of galactic empires is over. The age of free worlds has begun. 1 year later, Captain Dan Miller stood on the observation deck of Earth's newest space station, watching as the first ships of the Free Worlds Alliance left for the far reaches of the galaxy. Each ship carried human advisors, engineers, and military specialists who would help newly independent worlds build their own defenses. Hard to believe it has only been 18 months since they first showed up, said Colonel Lisa Park, joining him at the big window. Feels like a lifetime, Dan agreed. But look what we have accomplished. The display showed the current political map of the galaxy. The Galactic Empire had been reduced to fewer than 1,000 worlds, mostly in the core systems where their control remained strong. The rest of the galaxy was a patchwork of independent worlds, regional alliances, and confederations, all united by one simple principle: the right to remain free. Captain, said a voice behind them. They turned to see Captain Nancy Wells, formerly of the Asteroid Belt Defense Grid, now wearing the uniform of the Free Worlds Alliance Navy. Captain Wells, Dan replied. Ready for your new assignment? Yes, sir. The Kepler Confederation has asked for help in establishing their own defense network. Apparently they want to build something similar to what we created here. Dan nodded. It was happening throughout the galaxy. Worlds that had been defenseless for centuries were learning to protect themselves, guided by human expertise and inspired by human example. Just remember, Captain, he said, our job is not to build another empire. It is to make sure no one ever can again. Understood, sir. We are not conquering. We are teaching. As the ship left, Dan thought about the changes that had swept across the galaxy. The Galactic Empire still existed, but it was no longer the unstoppable force it had once been. More importantly, it was no longer the only option for worlds seeking protection and prosperity. Sir, said Sarah Brooks, approaching with a message tablet. We are getting a transmission from the Centauri Republic. They want to establish a formal alliance with Earth. Dan smiled. The Centauri had been among the first to rebel after Earth's victory, and their success had inspired dozens of other worlds to follow. Tell them we would be honored to be their friends, he replied, but make it clear that any alliance with Earth comes with one non-negotiable condition: the absolute right of every world to choose its own destiny. As the message was sent, Dan looked out at the stars once more. Somewhere out there, the remnants of the Galactic Empire were still trying to hold on to the worlds that remained under their control. But everywhere else, species that had been enslaved for centuries were learning what it meant to be free. And it had all started with a single word: no. The word that had changed the galaxy, spoken by a species that had never learned to kneel